Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
I'm Mary Edwards.
I'm John Carrozza.
I'm Jaci Pund.
I'm James Freitas.
I'm Susan Moore, and you're entering a world gone super scary good.
A world gone terrifyingly good.
A world gone hauntingly good.
A world gone super spooky good.
A world gone freaky good.
Well, hello to you, witches and warlocks. My name's Steve, and now I will explain this show in the most Halloweeny way I can. This is the place we shine the light into the darkness to prove, week after week, there's still good out there, and lots of it. Welcome to the horror show we call World Gone Good. I would say insert evil laugh here, but you already just heard an evil laugh, so you should be good to go. Today we celebrate All Hallows Eve, literally on the day before Halloween, if you're listening to the premiere date of this here episode. So here's the question to kick things off. Do you believe in ghosts? Spirits? Things that go bump in the night that defy explanation? In a recent poll of 1,000 American adults, 41% said they believe in ghosts, and 20% said they have personally experienced them. A few weeks ago, I posted on Facebook asking for some spooky stories. Now, I put the call up before for holiday stories and giving thanks at Thanksgiving, and I got some responses, but I have never gotten the amount of responses as quickly as I did to this question. I swear to Goblin, see what I did there? A lot of you, us, me too, don't just believe. We've had actual spirit activity happen in our own lives. And that's what we're here to explore. The good of ghosties and spooky spooks, because they are good. And there is good in simply the unknown. To me, it gives hope that there is more out there. And it's also kind of cool that not everything can be explained with a quick Google search. So to kick things off, we're going to start with a way back tale from my pal and previous good guest, Mary Edwards. Let's start by winding up the old music box and flipping it open. This is Mary's scary good story.
When I was about 5, I acquired a group of 6 imaginary friends. It was my impression that this was normal, what all kids my age conjured up to keep from feeling lonely. I was aware of my own vivid imagination and was encouraged to let it nurture through the wonders of childhood inventiveness. These figures appeared to no one else in my family. However, my parents and siblings spoke of them as I did, with the same bright reverence as my visible, in-the-flesh playmates from school. Almost every day, around the same time, I would go downstairs to our wood-paneled basement and flush on all the lights, especially the one over the built-in bookcase. Somehow, the long fluorescent bar shining over the volumes of James Michener, Kurt Vonnegut, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, and Willa Cather gave me the assurance that the additional luminescence would ward off the weird energy I always felt when I was alone down there. The bluish lighting added a dimension to the space. It seemed to open up to a horizon like the ones described in some of the books in the shelf it shone upon, or some kind of portal that extended beyond the built-in utility hatch and the paneling that opened to the fuse box and the house meter. As soon as the final filament flickered, I felt safe, and I would watch my imaginary friends come through the east wall in a processional, all dressed in white gowns, which they would disrobe to reveal their play clothes. Some of them dressed like me in typical early 1970s polyester knit coordinates. Others revealed more formal outfits with patent shoes that looked like the ones my dad wore in photographs taken in his Chelsea neighborhood in 1930s New York. It wasn't the first time I saw young people en masse dressed in period-specific clothes, but thought nothing of it. It was around that time my parents would take us to the Lower East Side to fit us for our winter parkas and treat us to knishes at Yona Schimmel's. On those excursions, I would see among a burgeoning crowd in contemporary wear individuals coming forth in top hats and corset-waisted petticoats, the city buses yielding to the arrival of horse-drawn buggies, from which some of these more dated people stepped. At the time, I didn't question it, nor did I see a correlation. It was as customary as my friends who routinely emerged through the basement wall, at first looking a bit serious if not disoriented, then engaging in a temporary playfulness until it was time to suit up in their institutional whites before marching in formation back into the paneling. I knew my friends would return as long as I acknowledged them. They had names: Gunnar, Nancy, Hank, Nantha and Padantha, the twins, and Duckett, an androgynous girl who became my confidant. It was Duckett that I allowed to make calls on my Fisher-Price Ericsson-style toy phone, the signal seemingly going to nowhere. But then, according to my brother Jonathan, maybe it did. Duckett once cut my hair, to which I confessed to my parents that it was actually me wielding the rounded-edged scissors to administer the asymmetrical bang in my otherwise proportioned afro. While they laughed with forgiveness, I would hear them on the other side of my bedroom wall, in the late evening hours, discussing in a muffled, serious tenor something about talking to one of my father's colleagues for advice. Decades would pass, and at family gatherings we'd often joke about my imaginary friends and the hairstyling hijinks with Duckett. I often thought of these kids from my imagination and entertained the idea that they might have actually been apparitions from the Willowbrook State School that stopped admitting residents that same year after Geraldo Rivera did an expose that eventually caused the institution to close and reform. My visitors were lost in the system long before they passed on. They knew to come to me, a young person who was spiritually receptive, for a moment of entertainment before returning to the purgatory of institutional rigor, the discipline that they only knew to respond to in that state of in-between. It was possible that they sensed I would not see them as invisible children that they had already become when they were amongst the living. Months before my own mother's passing, we were sitting in her kitchen, sharing long-held secrets or full information to partially told stories to which I was already privy. "You know, your father and I," words she began many a sentence with at that time. "We felt you had a gift, and we didn't want to disturb your imagination, but we knew it was possible. Duckett gave you that haircut." I suddenly got a chill and my eyes began to well up in a weird kind of excitement. It explained why they were both amused and concerned. "I knew we had visitors in the house," Mom went on. "The same kind my Mama and Papa recognized when I was growing up. They knew I saw them." "So you knew all this time?" I responded through the chill and glaze. "I really thought everybody had imaginary friends, but the more I think about it, there was a routine, a ritual. They came through the wall every day at the same time. I knew to go into the basement to greet them. They wore white gowns, oh my God, like the ones the patients wore in Willowbrook. They always looked glum up until they took off that layer. And when they put the gowns back on, they were sad all over again. They were so stern-looking when they marched out. Oh my God." Mama Jewel touched my hand. "That's when we spoke to a specialist, your father's friend. He told us that it was best not to traumatize you. You were enjoying your friends." We all agreed that they were probably real, just dead. But they needed you because you welcomed them without fear.
Our next tale of hell that is living on Earth is going to be brought to us by my good friend, John Carrozza. You may remember John from our Valentine's Day episode a while back. I'm going to let him tell you what happened before I go into it more further with some questions of my own. But let me just start by saying this before he starts. If you have a dog or a cat, listen to this.
Years back, we had two dogs that are sadly no longer with us. Their names were Buck and Zorro. And they were the quintessential dogs who when you went out of the house, even if it was for just 5 minutes, and you came back in, they would go nuts. Oh my God, my people are home, go crazy. We had bought an oil painting by an artist named Anthony DeFrange, who was famous for doing these oil paintings of old movie queens, in particular Elizabeth Taylor. My husband had bought one of his paintings, and it was of an old silent movie queen named Norma Talmadge. And Norma had a very interesting life. She never made it out of the silent era, but she retired a very young and very wealthy woman. Like everybody back in that time, she enjoyed a drink now and then. Her story is kind of sad. She died kind of young, having become addicted to painkillers after getting arthritis. One day, my husband and I come home on a normal day, and we open the door, and there's no dogs in the doorway. And we're like, well, that's weird, because usually we get assaulted every time we walk in the door. We're looking around the house, and we can't find the dogs. We had put the painting in our dining room, and the dogs really never go in there. I go into the dining room, and the dogs are both sitting there staring up at the painting of Norma Talmadge on our wall. Their tails aren't going. They're not making a sound. They're completely ignoring us. They are just deadly staring at that painting. Nothing we did could get them to move, to acknowledge us. It was very bizarre. After a while, they kind of gave up and they moved away. And we had a normal evening, but we thought, well, that was really weird. Something's up. A few weeks later, we had a friend of ours who is a little bit clairvoyant. I don't really believe in all of that stuff, but I believe enough to be respectful of it. She came into our house and she walked right over to the painting. And she's like, someone's here. And we're like, what? She's like, yeah, someone's here. So we told her the story about the dogs. And she's like, oh, yeah, yep, she's here. And we were like, oh, my God. So I go, what do we do? Now, luckily, my husband and I are fans of old movies and old Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. So it was very easy for us to say, Norma, you're welcome here. We like you. You're okay. You can stay with us. Everything's good. And then we moved our bar cart. We have like a 1960s era bar cart similar to the one that Elizabeth Montgomery would wheel into the living room on Bewitched every time she needed to make a drink for a client of Darren's. We moved the bar cart right underneath the painting, and then the dogs never reacted to the painting again. Hopefully, we've still got a friendly spirit of Norma Talmadge bopping around the house every now and then.
Did this take place in the house that I know you from, or one house before?
No, the house that you know.
Okay. And so Norma basically just wanted to get liquored up.
That's fine with me. I don't judge.
Wait, the friend who came over, it wasn't Mary Edwards, was it?
It was.
I know that because Mary Edwards just recorded with us yesterday, and I'm going to feature her story on here as well. That's funny.
Wow. Yeah. It's a small world gone good.
Wow. Wait, so I have another question. Where exactly did you get this painting?
We got it at a sale at the Hollywood Heritage Museum. They were trying to raise money, and they were selling books and old memorabilia that they had laying around. And, this artist, his paintings go for thousands of dollars. And I think we paid like $100 for it.
Did you know the actress that was in the painting? Did you recognize her, or you found out information? You're like, oh, that's cool. I'm into films and all that.
Oh, no, I knew exactly who she was. I mean, we Doug and I know those people. We know who they are.
You know the quiet types. That's really cool. Did you look up any information on her family-wise, or, did she have any kids or anything?
Yeah, I looked up afterwards. She didn't have any kids that has been reported on. But she, interestingly, was one of the first women in Hollywood to create her own production company.
Oh.
So when she realized that she really didn't want to continue to be an actress into the sound era, she stepped away from acting. And with her husband, she set up really what could be the first woman-owned private motion picture production company. And that's what made her wealthy.
I love it. And there's been no activity since.
No. I mean, not that I'm aware of, and none of our other dogs have reacted to that painting. So I guess Norma either moved on or she just settled in and very happy. But every once in a while, we will talk to her. Every once in a while, if we hear something strange in the house or the lights flicker or something like that, we go, "Hi, Norma."
Our next two guests share what happened living full-time with full-time ghosts. Here's my friend Susan Moore to start us off.
From the ages of 9 to 19, my family and I lived in a duplex that was next door to another duplex. And we always felt like it was haunted because we would hear footsteps up on the roof. We would hear the sound of our door opening and closing, which was very distinctive because it was a very old building. So there was a distinct sequence of sounds of unlocking it, opening it. You had to slam it to close it, and then the door knocker hitting when you did it. And that noise would happen when nobody was coming through the door. One time my sister was home alone upstairs, swore she heard the TV on, go downstairs, but nobody else was there. She had her friends come over to help her check. Nobody was there. But as soon as her friends came to the door, the TV went off. One time my mom was sitting on her bed, which was up against a wall, and swears somebody walked behind her, even though there was no way anybody could have walked behind her. And then another time she came in to go to bed. And when she pulled the blankets back, she felt like a rush of heat come up at her. And you know how the bed would get hot from somebody laying on it? She could feel that body heat on the bed, even though nobody had been there. And she, of course, screamed for my father to come over and feel it, and he verified it for her. One day, our next door neighbor from the duplex next door came over, and she mentioned something about her ghosts. And my mother said, "What do you mean your ghosts? We have ghosts. You have ghosts?" And next door, she and the tenants downstairs actually saw apparitions. She had a man that would stand in her living room all the time, and her cat would stare at it from the other end of the hallway and be afraid to go into the living room. And the family downstairs had a woman that would follow people around in the house and come in and pound on the husband's arm when he was in bed. So they did research and discovered that both those buildings where we lived had been built by a retired sea captain. It sounds like a tall tale, but he was a retired sea captain with two daughters that were spinsters, and he built these, one for each of them, to have a home. And what they think is that the retired sea captain was the man up in the living room, and that the other, one of the daughters, was the one haunting downstairs. And the father and son that lived downstairs never said anything to each other, but they drew pictures of the woman they were seeing. And when they finally spoke about it, they compared their drawings, and they had drawn the same person. And they had a series of housekeepers that were quitting all the time, and they would ask them why. And they said, "I don't like that lady following me around." And then eventually everybody that lived next door were Catholic. They decided to have an exorcism, and they did. And that was the end of their ghosts. But we never saw an apparition, but we definitely felt there was something there.
It is crazy. That is crazy. Have you, as an adult, had any experiences like it?
No, I haven't. But I believe there are ghosts. There are something.
Have you been back to that house ever?
I actually have, because one time when I was out at lunch, because it was near the place we used to work, I saw.
That's another scary tale.
Shall not be named. Yeah, that's a whole other story. Sorry. But I was driving by on my lunch hour, and I saw that there was construction workers, and it was open. And I'm like, oh, I have to go in. I haven't been in there in 20 years or whatever. And because they were remodeling, and I walked in and it was empty because they were redoing it. And I'm like, "Do you mind if I look around?" They're like, "No, go ahead." And I said, "I used to live here." And I walked around, and I didn't feel any weirdness in there. It was, it was weird to be back in there after not having been there for so long, but I have a feeling maybe somebody else did another exorcism or something, because there was no spookies there.
In my version of this, of the movie version, when you go back in the house when they're doing that, you become the one trapped in it, and it turns out it was you the entire time.
Okay. Is that your next best-selling book?
Nobody write that. Let me write that.
Yeah, save that
Keep
for Steve.
between us.
About a month ago, I was at one of our favorite delis on the boulevard there, and I had time to kill, so I walked over because it's just 2 blocks down from the deli, and I walked over there and I stood in front and just did a selfie and sent it to my sister, and she looked at the picture, and there was like, it was just the way the light was hitting, I think. But she like goes, "Oh my God, there's a ghost behind you," because there was like a light flare behind me. I could send you that picture.
My pal Jaci Pund spent a few years in college living with roommates, including one who just happened to come on over from the other side.
I lived with a ghost for 2 years when I was in college. So, a couple of years ago. And it was I lived with several other girls in a house that was built in the late 1920s. And there were just a lot of strange things that happened. So the most prominent thing was whistling, where if you were sitting in a room, you could almost feel somebody standing in the room with you. And we would often hear somebody whistle to try to get our attention, just as if they were standing right outside the door frame or in the hallway. And it would be that, kind of whistle that you do. It happened so often that it just absolutely was not any other person. It would happen to us when we were alone in the house. I'd have somebody else over and tell them the story, and they'd kind of laugh, and it's just, we're just making it up, or our mind's playing tricks on us. And then they would hear the whistle just a few feet away. So that was just kind of how it started. And then it escalated to pacing and footsteps up and down the hallway late at night. My room was in the basement, and I could hear it upstairs just above where I slept. And I would go upstairs, and everybody is asleep in their beds, and nobody is awake, and the house is dark. And it just became something that I got used to. It would move things in the kitchen. So it would slide books and things off the table, and you could hear that from another room. So you could hear, books slide very slowly and then hit the floor, and then walk into the kitchen, and nobody's there. It would turn on electronics in other rooms. So if we were in the living room, it would turn on a stereo in another room. That happened even when we had guests over. If somebody was staying over, then the timer on the oven would go off at 3 a.m. That was very common.
Now, how long did you all live in this house?
I lasted 2 years.
Wow.
So I lived with it for 2 years. And honestly, it didn't really ever bother me. I mean, it was a little creepy, but I just kind of felt like it was another roommate. I never got the feeling, and I'm pretty sensitive to things like that. So I never felt like it was malicious. I just felt like it was another person who, for whatever reason, was stuck there with us and just wanted us to know that it was there.
So there was no ominous darkness happening.
I never felt that. But now we had a lot of turnover because people got too scared and moved out. So, there were a number of times where I would come home and a girl would be crying because she was studying by herself and nobody was home. And then the TV turned on or her music turned on, or her books fell off the table and I'd have to go, turn off the stereo for her and play, Boogeyman Police.
When did you all make the connection that somebody from a long time ago lived in the house, or did you do some research of some sort to find out information about who previously lived in the house?
I wish, that the house has since been torn down. At some point, I started doing research on my own house here in Inglewood. I bought a house in Inglewood in 2015, and I had dreams about who used to live here. And I went down to the LA Public Library, and I actually found evidence that the dreams I was having of the person were correct. But no, I couldn't find any research on this house that we used to live in.
So interesting too, because you got to wonder if it's like somebody from the 1940s or 1950s. Maybe they were just so fascinated by like record player or, internet or.
Oh, look at this. This is interesting.
It's fun.
And kind of, can you imagine? I just can't imagine if there really is such a thing as a conscious, sentient entity trapped in a location. How bored must you be to just watch other people? That makes perfect sense. I could feel it too. I'd be downstairs in my, I had the whole basement to myself, and I could feel when somebody, ran down the stairs to say hello. And it happened so many times that I could feel or hear somebody trot down the stairs and then walk up behind me and lean over me to say hello. And I'd turn around to smile at who I thought, might be a boyfriend or whatever. And there's nobody there.
Oh.
Yeah, those times it really did make the hair stand on end. Those were pretty creepy, but even then it never felt like some sort of dark entity. It just felt like another person. So we called her Josephine. We give her a name.
Oh my God, I love it.
We were like, I don't know who you are, but we're just gonna call you Josephine, and just agree to live in peace and harmony. And some could take it and some moved out.
That's really amazing. It's such a connecting thing because it really gives some sort of, in some ways, a good peace of mind to be like, okay, it's not just this. There might be a whole other dimension. There might be a whole other universe. There might be afterlife. Maybe she's stuck. Maybe she's not stuck and she just really likes the house and wants to hang out.
When I bought this house in Inglewood, this house was built in 1940. And when I made an offer to the real estate agent that night, I had a dream of a man standing in front of the house, and I can still picture his face, every feature, what he looked like. And he was wearing a 1940s Marine uniform and holding out his arm, welcoming me like he was proud that he built this house. And so I went down to the public library, and I literally found exactly what I dreamed. The right age, the right ethnicity, that his enlistment into World War II.
Did you see him physically in your waking hours, or was that a dream?
No, it was more like a vision, like a meditative. Sometimes I do that when I have hard time making decisions or just, whatever in life. I'll just close my eyes and let things flow into my mind. And that's what came. And that was, okay, I'm clearly welcome.
Our final guest of our ghosty goodness is my good friend James Freitas. And if you're a 80s, 90s kind of boy or girl and you love them all, you're going to love this very scary but fun ghostly story that takes place, yep, you guessed it, at the mall.
Here is my ghost story. It's roughly 1995. I'm in my mid-20s, and I'm working in the Lakewood Mall at a store called Express. Now, if you don't remember that store back in the 90s, this probably will jar your memory. Their idea and concept was to do a whole French theme. And in the stores, you would see murals that were of the Baroque style. And then sometimes there would be, like in the larger stores, a giant cutout of like a woman suspended from the ceiling. It's that famous painting of the woman in the swing, very 16th century. A lot of gilded stuff in the stores. And there was a lot of merchandise. Like these stores were massive, and they would have these cut out things in the walls, and I would have to fold these sweatshirts that had these embroidery work done that had flowers that said EXP. And what my job was that I was the stock manager, and I also did the visuals on the floor. There were 2 stock rooms, and the stock room was divided by a long hallway. At one end of the hallway was the door onto the main floor. And on the opposite end of the hallway was the exit to like a walkway into the parking lot, actually, that was behind the store location. And on either side of that hallway, one side contained the office space. And then it was also where there was shelving. And that would be where we would keep all of like the mannequins and any sort of brackets and stuff for the shelving, anything that you would need on the floor, the sensor tags, all that stuff. So that would be on that side. And it was quite a large space. There was also a bathroom on that side, and there was a water closet kind of a thing where we would keep the mops and stuff, all of that. Then on the opposite side of the hallway would be the shipment room, where all of the merchandise that was clothing would be housed. And it would look almost like your dry cleaners, where you would see the suspended from the ceiling racks or rows that were on these coil wire things that were on rods. And there would be literally thousands of pieces of merchandise on each row, because we would multiple hanger them. So you'd have on one hanger, suspended from the ceiling, you could have like 6 items that would be hanging off of one hanger. And so there was a lot of merchandise in the back. I'm working alone, and I'm in that stock room with all that merchandise. And I'm going through my normal process of, I've got a little table that's on wheels, and I'm standing and I'm facing a wall, and behind me is all those rows of pieces of merchandise. And to my left is the doorway into that long hallway. And I've got my music going, and I'm just doing my thing, just processing. And as I'm doing that, I see somebody walk by the door, and she's out of my peripheral. And giving you an idea of space, I'm probably only about 5 feet away from the door, FYI. So this woman walks by, and she's heading towards the back exit of the store. So she's not going to the main floor. She's going towards the exit. And normally that happens because one of the gals on the floor, one of the sales girls, would come back and they would throw their trash away. So they would have like a big bag, of trash, and they would just go and they drop it by the exit door. And at the end of my shift, I would go out and I would dump everything, all of my trash, out in the dumpster out in the parking lot. So that was part of my job. So she walks down, and again, my peripheral, I can see everything. I don't see her walk back, and also I don't hear anything. I don't hear her drop the bag, because normally they would just throw it. They would actually toss it midway through the hallway. So so I don't hear anything, and I'm like, what is she doing back there? So then I walk to the doorway and I look down the hall, and I don't see anything. And it kind of, stunned me, but also was like a moment of, wait a minute, did I see that? I think I saw that. I saw someone walk. So so that was that first moment of, okay, something's not quite right with that, because I clearly saw someone walk by. Okay, so about a month later, I'm in the same location, and now I'm working with 2 of my employees. And I'm in the center, and the 2 guys were on either side of me. And we've got our little tables set up in a row, and we are all processing the merchandise, and we're pulling stuff out of boxes, and we're just making lots of noise. We've got our music blasting, and it's the mid-90s, so it could be, who knows, Annie Lennox, Janet Jackson, who knows. We're just having a great old time. So having fun. And so it's noisy. We're processing, doing all that. And you get to a certain point because you're unbagging so much clothing and everything, and the plastic that's wrapping everything. What we would do is we just throw it on the floor. And at a certain point, you would then you get to, it's up about like above your knee and you're in plastic. And then you would just then pack all those pieces of plastic into one of the bags you've then taken the clothes out of. So then I knelt down and I start shoving that stuff into the bag, and it's noisy and everything. And somebody walks by my table, and she just walks by this, and I'm thinking, because girls on the floor would come back and they would grab, if a customer needed a specific size and we were out of it on the floor, they would just come back and come get it. So that wasn't out of the norm. And she walks by, didn't think twice about it. I stood up, and my manager's name is Kim, and I stood up and I thought it was her. And I just stood up and I was like, "Hey, Kim, I was going to ask you." And I kind of stop, and I'm kind of looking around. I'm like, "Wait a minute, where is she?" And the guys are just stopped dead, cold. And they look at me. Both of them are looking at me with like deer in the headlights expression. And I say to them, like, "Why are you looking at me like that?" And both of them are like, "What? Why did you ask that?" And so I'm now getting a little like nervous or anxious. And I say back to them, "Why are you asking me that? Why are you asking me that in that tone? Like, what's going on? Like, what?" They're like, "Why did you ask it? Why did you ask if Kim is back here?" I was like, because she came. Did she not come back here? And they're like, no. Oh my God, you're freaking me out. You're freaking. The other guy's like, "Oh my God, you're totally freaking me out." And now I'm like, "Okay, now you guys are freaking me out. Like, what's up? What's going on?" And they're like, oh my God, he saw it. He saw something. And they're like, "What did you see?" I was like, "I saw someone walk by my table." And then they're both like jumping up and down. They're like, dude, oh my God, you actually saw something. And so I was like, "Why is this?" Okay, I'm now like, what's happening? It's like, "Well, what did you see? And I said, "I saw a woman walk by me. I was on, I was down underneath my table, so I couldn't see the top half because the top of the table's blocking my view. But someone clearly walked by because I saw her shoes, I saw her legs, I saw her dress." And they're like, "Oh my God, no one came back here, James. No one came back here."
Holy great pumpkin, Charlie Brown. It's a cliffhanger. It's a good cliffhanger because James's story keeps going, and then we have a really cool conversation about spirits and angels and signs and being open to the unbelievable. Our Ghosts Gone Good Part 2 continues next week here on World Gone Good. Until then, be good.